The bell above the door jingled softly as Clara Johnson walked into Maplewood Diner, just as she had every morning for the last 15 years. The place smelled of fresh biscuits and sizzling bacon, a scent that clung to the worn red booths and faded checkered tiles. Clara wasn't wealthy or powerful in the usual sense. She was a retired schoolteacher, her hair peppered with gray, her hands marked with years of writing on chalkboards and holding books, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. Sliding into her favorite booth by the window, she nodded at the waitress, Maggie, who knew her order by heart. Coffee, black. 2 sugars on the side. Clara unfolded the local paper, her glasses sliding low on her nose. It was the same routine, the same calm, until the door opened again. Heavy boots hit the linoleum. The chatter in the diner dimmed as Deputy Carl Simmons entered. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his sheriff's star glinting in the morning light. People knew his type, badge-heavy, ego-heavier. Carl scanned the room like he owned it. Then his eyes landed on Clara's booth. "That's my seat," he said flatly, stopping at her table. Clara lowered her paper, blinking. "Excuse me?" "My seat. I sit here when I come in. Move." A few customers shifted uncomfortably. Maggie froze behind the counter. Everyone knew Carl's temper. But Clara simply shook her head. "I've sat here for 15 years, Deputy. You're welcome to the one across from me." The words were calm but firm, and that, to Carl Simmons, felt like defiance. A smirk curled his lips. "Lady, I don't think you understand how this works." Before Clara could respond, Carl grabbed the steaming cup of coffee Maggie had just set down, and with deliberate cruelty, he tipped it over, spilling it across Clara's chest and the table. The liquid spread quickly, soaking her blouse, dripping on her lap. The heat stung, but Clara didn't flinch. She simply looked up at him, eyes steady, while gasps rippled through the diner. "Oops," Carl drawled, tossing a single napkin on the mess. "Guess accidents happen." The silence that followed was thick. Clara dabbed at her shirt, her hands steady, her gaze unshaken. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't argue. She simply reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and typed a single message. "David, come to Maplewood Diner now." What Carl didn't know, what none of the customers whispering in shock knew, was that Clara Johnson's son wasn't just any man. He was David Johnson, the mayor of Maplewood. And David's patience for injustice was far shorter than Clara's silence. As the coffee dripped from the edge of the table to the floor, the quiet storm began to gather. David Johnson arrived at the diner in under 10 minutes, his black SUV screeching to a halt at the curb. The glass door flew open, and he strode in wearing a crisp navy suit, his presence commanding immediate attention. The room seemed to exhale in relief. Everyone knew him, not just as the mayor, but as a man who had risen from nothing, the son of the same woman now sitting in that booth, her blouse stained with coffee. "Mom," David said, rushing to her side. He crouched, his voice low, controlled. "What happened?" Clara's tone was calm, almost too calm. "Ask the deputy." David's eyes lifted, locking on to Carl Simmons, who leaned smugly against the counter, arms crossed. "Did you do this?" David's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. Carl chuckled. "She wouldn't move. Got in my way. Things spill." Maggie, the waitress, shook her head. "That's not what happened, Mr. Mayor. He poured it on her. On purpose." Murmurs rose around the diner. A truck driver in the back added, "I saw it too. He wanted to embarrass her." David stood slowly, his height matching Carl's. "You think this town belongs to you because you wear a badge?" Carl sneered. "It's just coffee. Don't make a scene, Johnson." But David wasn't just a mayor. He was a son who had buried his father young, who had watched his mother struggle, sacrifice, and still treat others with respect. Seeing her disrespected now ignited something deep and fierce. "You've done more than spill coffee," David said, voice steady. "You've poured arrogance on this whole town, and it stops today." Carl's smirk faltered for the first time. David turned to Maggie. "Call the sheriff's office. Tell them to send the captain. Now." Minutes later, Captain Harris arrived, his expression grim as witnesses recounted the incident. With every word, Carl's face paled. The smug confidence drained from him like air from a punctured tire. Finally, Harris removed Carl's badge. "Deputy Simmons, you're suspended effective immediately. Step outside." Gasps echoed again. Carl sputtered, "You can't." But he could. Because Clara's son wasn't just powerful, he was respected. And respect has more weight than arrogance ever could. As Carl was escorted out, David turned back to the diner. "No one in this town, not even an officer of the law, has the right to humiliate or abuse another person. My mother may be quiet, but she is not invisible. And neither is anyone else here." The diner erupted in applause, some standing, some with tears in their eyes. Maggie rushed to replace Clara's ruined blouse with an apron from the kitchen, whispering, "I'm so sorry, Miss Johnson." Clara smiled softly. "Don't be. Sometimes silence needs a witness before it can speak." That night, word spread across Maplewood. What had started as a cruel act in a small diner became a story of dignity, justice, and the power of quiet strength. Carl Simmons never wore a badge again. The sheriff's department faced an inquiry, and new training programs on respect and community relations were introduced. And as for Clara, she returned to her booth every morning as if nothing had changed. But everyone who passed through Maplewood Diner knew better, because in just 38 seconds, one man had tried to silence her. And in 38 minutes, her son had reminded the whole town, when silence breaks, justice speaks louder than hate.